What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the members room. And on today's episode, we have Jake Pileggi of Pointview Roofing. He's a 24-year-old killing it in the industry. We talk about the grittiness of the roofing industry, talk about some real estate, and much more. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. So today's episode, we have Jake Pileggi with Pointview Roofing.
And public adjusting.
And public adjusting. Now,
That's
we were
correct.
just talking about that before the camera turned on. What is public adjusting?
So public adjusting is basically a casual way. I always tell my customers it's like hiring a lawyer for your house or your property when there's an insurance claim. So water damage, flood, hail, wind. I probably specialize in hail, wind, tornado type things because I do, everything on the exterior of the home. But I can do, water damage, and I've done a few. But basically any insurance claim related things that you have going on, it's like hiring a lawyer to represent you. So the insurance company sends out their adjuster, and I represent you as your adjuster. Now, do a lot of people do like on, roof claims, if there was a hailstorm, a lot of people just have the roofer out there, and that's fine sometimes, but a public adjuster kind of holds a little more weight, a little more formal. And it's just, it's a good thing to have if you're a homeowner because you're taken seriously usually.
So someone would hire you to kind of keep the public adjuster that the insurance company's bringing in honest and making sure they're doing all the right things.
Yes, it's just that the insurance company's adjuster is not called the public adjuster. They're just called an insurance adjuster. I'm the public adjuster.
Okay.
Sorry.
Got it.
But yeah, you're basically, you represent it's like, lawyers. I represent the homeowner. They represent the insurance company. We kind of go back and forth. And in Illinois, you're allowed to be a contractor and a public adjuster. Most states, you're not allowed to do that. So that's the good thing about Illinois. It makes it simple. Like in Florida, you can't be in the same building as a public adjuster. So if say this was my office and in the office next door, there was a roofing contractor and I was a public adjuster, you can't be in the same building from what I've heard. I'm pretty sure, but that shows you how serious they are there about that. Wow. But in Illinois, you're allowed to be both. So.
And do you get a lot of your leads from the public adjusting end first? Like, do people call you up for a public adjuster? Then you're like, oh, hey, we actually got roofing as well. Or does it kind of go hand in hand a little bit?
It goes hand in hand. I mean, my business is listed everywhere as roofing and public adjusting. So I get a lot of leads and calls from people who have problems with claims, and that's not always the best thing, but some of them are good, where they got like a half approval or something with a roof being half paid for. The industry is getting harder and harder with storm restoration. So things are tightening up, but in general, they come usually hand in hand, I would say.
Now I wanted to get into, I know early we're going to start, I wanted to get into your customer acquisition funnels. I know we talked before, you do some ads, you run some ads, and then also I wanted to know if you have any salesmen on the street going door to door, or if you work with any companies as such.
So obviously I work with Link Creative. They do all of my marketing stuff from start to finish, content, paid ads, things like that.
Have you got any leads from the content yet?
It's hard to tell. I have obviously gotten leads from paid ads, but where that's coming from because you're paying for it. As far as like organically, I don't know exactly. Sometimes they come in through like lead forms on my website. It'll be a customer and they type in their information. So that's them going on my website and doing it organically. So how they've got to that point is kind of a mystery to me. Maybe that's
because you don't do SEO yet. But you haven't done SEO yet.
I mean, we do SEO.
Oh, you do SEO.
Yeah.
So when someone looks up like need a roofer for just had a hailstorm, you come up.
I should.
At one of the top.
But the competition in the Chicagoland area is astronomical. Yeah. So I should, but then again, there's 57 other companies out there that do the same thing.
So it's whoever pays the most for that.
Probably, yes.
Yeah. And how do you stay competitive in a competitive market like that? Roofing.
When you have a smaller company like I do, it's not so much. You don't need to do as much volume as these other companies that have 55 salesmen on the street, So I don't necessarily need the whole pie. I just need a few pieces of the puzzle, and that's what I'm good with. Obviously, I want to grow and, grow to a point that's something you could have never imagined. But at the same time, you don't want to get stuck in that. Like in the roofing industry, they say like when you're between 3 to 7 million in revenue, you're stuck in like this gray zone to where you were making more when you were, you and maybe 2 salesmen and a secretary, when you were doing 1 to 2 million a
More
year.
profit.
No, not profit. I'm saying revenue.
Oh, revenue.
I'm
okay.
saying sales, gross sales. So there's a zone to where they say like you're making more money if you have a small company, you're doing 1 to 2 million a year, compared to a company that has 15 salesmen, but it's stuck in that 3 to 7 million zone. I think I've heard around the industry that when you get past, 9, 10 million, then things are starting to flow because it's just such a big operation. But I never wanted to get stuck in that zone. So I don't know. I'm kind of, that's where I'm at now, where I'm kind of figuring out how to grow and not get stuck, because I'm happy where I'm at now and I like the way things are flowing. It's just that you want to grow. You just don't want to grow and then get stuck.
Yeah, for sure. And you like staying in your niche within a certain number of towns, or would you go out a long distance for a job?
I will go, I'll go pretty far. I won't go to different states. I've done, jobs in Shanahan, Illinois, even though I'm based out of Downers Grove. I've done Shanahan, Harvard, Illinois, which is by the Wisconsin state line. I've done a few in Wisconsin near our family lake house, but that's kind of an exception. But I will go pretty far. I try not to go inner city too much, just because it kind of gets to be a headache. But it kind of, you think that you're bad at something one year, and then all of a sudden you do it a few times. You're like, yeah, it's not that bad. I know how to do that now. So I try not to stray away from too many things, but I have figured out what things are headaches and what things to turn away from sometimes, or, how you price things out, and you're like, hey, you can price things accordingly as to how much of a headache they are, especially repair wise in the roofing industry. So
now I always wonder with companies that have to give quotes and estimates for how much something's going to cost, sometimes it's a tough battle between giving a low estimate, but also not too low where at the end of the project, it's drastically more than you estimated and the customer's pissed off and won't come back to you. How do you kind of balance that out and find the sweet spot with a little cushion in your price?
So there's a service, the first service that came out in the industry was called Eagle View. Bunch of people do it now. I order mine, I think, through GAF Quick Measure mostly. It's basically an aerial shot of a roof. So that gives me all my measurements I need pretty accurately. I do all my ordering materials off that, all my bidding off that. For siding and windows and things like that, you can use a software called Hover. Hover's pretty cool. It's like a 3D rendering of a house, and it's got all the measurements you want in there. So siding, I use Hover, and then for roofing, I use Eagle View Quick Measure, and it gives you aerial measurements. So when I get to that point, I get those pretty quickly too. For a roof, I'll get those in like 30 minutes. So when I meet a customer at their house, if it's a retail job, and just to give you a little bit of background, retail means people paying out of pocket, and then insurance work obviously is, insurance restoration. So if it's a retail job and I'm pulling up to an appointment, or I have someone going out there, I'll have those measurements pulled, and there's only a few things I need to check on. Is it 2 layers? Does it need plywood? Is something out of code? And if all those things are figured out, I basically have what I charge per square, they call it. So squares in the roofing industry is basically square footage, but if your house is 3,200 square feet, it's probably around 32 squares.
Got it.
So okay. I'll have my measurements. I'll know what I charge per square depending on the pitch, how complex it is. Does it have 2 layers? Is it bad access? Is it in the middle of the city? Things like that. So it's pretty quick. A simple roof I can bid out within probably 5 minutes if I have my measurements, maybe cool. Less.
Yeah. And going back to your acquisition of customers, I know you were talking about a lot of big companies have a bunch of salesmen on the street that, especially if there's like a hailstorm or a big storm that wrecks a lot of roofs, correct, that they head to that area. At what point are you going to have salesmen on the street?
I've experimented with mass sending out people like that. It's not really the way I want to build. Like a lot of them build in the same way. They send out, they'll send out 20 young kids just to get the appointments, knock on the doors. And there's no getting around in this industry. The people who make the money are the ones who knock the doors. That is plain and simple. As far as the storm restoration industry goes, people who make the money are the ones who knock the doors. And if you're telling yourself something different, you're just making excuses because no one likes to knock on doors. Yeah. So, and that's how everyone starts in the industry. I guarantee every company owner that you talk to has started knocking doors, and that's just the only way to start because there's no other way to get your foot in the door. When will I don't know if I will exactly follow that exact model. I'm trying to build my business a little bit more focused on the retail side of things, because it's just a little more smooth, the process. You know, you bid a job, you do the job, you get paid, you walk away. Insurance restoration work is an absurd amount of paperwork, and especially with me being a PA on most of my claims, it's just, you know, and stuff doesn't get approved right away. Sometimes it's a fight that never gets approved. So you put a lot of work into something that you're never going to make any money off of, and you got an upset homeowner and no one understands. So even though insurance work is great, there's no denying that. I just would like to do more so retail and then take the insurance work, the good ones as they come. That's kind of how I'd like to build my business.
And I think this is a great transition. I was talking about salesmen. You started as a door-to-door salesman, if I'm not mistaken, somewhat.
Yes. So I started in the industry working for my uncle when I was like 17, 18. And yeah, you basically go out and you knock doors, and it's not a good feeling, but it's a good feeling when you get your first few sales, and then you're like, okay, this actually works, and then you get paid, and you're like, wow, that's great. So yeah, it's definitely it's a gritty industry as far as storm restoration goes. It's very gritty, but again, the people who make the money are the ones who knock the doors.
Is that the kind of door knocking you were doing? Is if there was like a hailstorm somewhere, you'd go to that
Yes.
neighborhood or area?
Yes.
So you were doing that.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it was for your uncle. For his
Correct.
company, does he have a group of salesmen? And he does roofing, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they all have their, you know, some people keep salesmen on. Like there's different types of salesmen, and like sometimes people have a salesman who works a different job during the day, and they just know a lot of people at work, and they're a great salesman because they have a lot of connections. And they don't need to knock on doors. And then sometimes, you know, you'll be a company owner and you'll have a younger kid, maybe, you know, 18 to 22, maybe in college, and then he wants to knock doors during the summer. And if the storm lines up that way, you can do that. But then there's other people who are in the industry that are roof salesmen that are age 30, age 40, some age 50, that have been making a living this way because they're just great at it. Their entire lives they've been making a living this way. So you find all types of salesmen out there. But again, the people who knock the doors are, if they're doing it for years, they're probably pretty good at it, and there's a lot of money to be had. If there's a good storm, there's a lot of money to be made.
Getting back to how you started, your kind of conception within roofing, you started as a salesman for your uncle. And then throughout college, over the summers, were you still doing roofing or GC work with your father? What were you doing?
I was doing a little bit of both. It kind of depended on if there was a great storm to work. You know, that was an easy way to get some money before going back to school. Also at school, I was for a long time, as I'm sure you know, I worked on our fraternity house. We had a big storm down there.
We were in the same fraternity. It's actually my pledge son.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Interesting fact.
Yeah.
So that was a big claim. That was something that took a long time to get approved. So I'm sure you could see how long sometimes these things take. So
Yeah.
that was an interesting one, though. As I was in school, I was doing that, so that was kind of cool because I was already in Champaign. But yeah, during the summers, I would do both. My dad, you know, sometimes I would do odd jobs with him and whatnot. He does more so like, you know, commercial jobs and big stuff. So where he needed my help, I would help him. But I was more so in selling during the summers.
Well, it takes a long time because both parties don't want to pay for the new roof, right?
Correct. Yeah. And a lot of times, like, people don't understand that, like, an insurance company, you have to think about it like a car. People say, oh, like, sometimes my friends will even say, like, oh, we need to get a new roof on our house. Will the insurance company cover it? And I'm like, you have to think about it like a car. An insurance company is not going to pay for your car because it's old. Something has to happen. There has to be a storm. They call it a sudden, an accidental direct physical loss is what they call it. It has to be an event that happens that changes the course of what was happening before. So that has to happen. It's not just, they're not just going to pay for a roof because it's old.
Do you ever see any customers purposefully damage the roof, make it seem like an accident? Have you heard of any stories like that?
I mean, I haven't personally seen anything obvious to where I was like, that looks, they call it manufactured. I haven't really seen, I mean, sometimes stuff like you'll be like, that doesn't look right. But at the same time, like if you're looking at a hit on a gutter or a downspout, it could be from a lawnmower. So it's not like they did it on purpose, but they call, like an insurance company would call that mechanical damage, not, you know, damage from hailstorm or an accidental loss. So they'll call it mechanical if they think it was done from something other than the weather-related event. They'll say that looks mechanically damaged to me. And then if they say that looks manufactured to me, that's bad news. Then you're talking about something that was done purposefully to try and get coverage on it, which no, I have not. I haven't had a situation like that. So
Yeah. Have you, right out of college, when you graduated, what was your plan? Did you think you were going to get into family business, like work for either your uncle or your dad, or did you want to start your own thing? What was your plan?
I always wanted to start my own thing. That was always my goal. And even working for my uncle who's in the same industry, he always was fine with that. I think he knew that I wanted to do that. So I was appreciative that he was, or I appreciated that he was okay with that. So he always knew I wanted to do that. And it's something that someone could get upset about being in the same industry. So he was okay with that. And my dad wasn't necessarily in the roofing industry. Like you said, he's in the GC industry. So I don't know. I took the path of roofing just because it's a little bit easier to start it yourself. I feel like, as my dad got into general contracting from being like in real estate development and building laundromats and building shopping centers, he got into GCing because of him building his own stuff.
Yeah.
So people took notice of him, putting up a shopping center in 100 days, and they're saying, oh, maybe you can build mine. So I don't really know how when people do it, it's just that I saw an easier route in to start a roofing company from scratch rather than start a general contracting company from scratch. So, and like I'm comparing it to how my dad did it because he kind of did it on accident from building his own stuff. That's kind of how it started. So the reason I did roofing was just a little bit easier entry, even though there's a lot more competition.
It seems like roofing, it's kind of more, obviously there are different situations for different properties. It's a little more copy paste. You kind of do the same kind of deal every time. And then in GC, it's like,
every job is complex.
Every job is kind of different.
Yes.
And complex. Yeah.
For sure.
So that definitely makes a lot of sense that it was much easier.
Yeah. I mean, a residential roof, if you got a simple job, a shingle roof is, I could do it with my eyes closed. So there's, you talk about flat roofing, that's a little bit different story. It's a little complicated. So, but bidding and pricing out shingle residential roofs is pretty, it's bread and butter for me.
Yeah. Now, did you work for your uncle right out of college, or did you?
I worked with him through college, and then after college, yes. And then I was in the midst of, well, I shouldn't say after college, because I started my own company as I was in college. So I was ready to roll when I got out.
Did you do the Illinois job under Pointview?
I did not.
LLC?
I did that. That was under my uncle's. But I had my company started in college. So when I got out, I was ready to rock. I got my roofing license in college. I got my public adjuster's license in college. So when I got out, I was ready to go, because the roofing exam is not really that tough. It wasn't that tough to me. Public adjuster license exam is a little more tough. That's like, you're talking about insurance language, and there was a lot of math in there, and like it was just, you had to do long division, even though long division is not hard. You're like, I got to relearn all this simple, like you couldn't use a calculator. I should say that. So there was a lot of math on it, and couldn't use a calculator. So that was kind of, that was a little bit tough, but.
You don't remember algebra from high school? You don't remember geometry? You don't remember that stuff?
I really didn't. But there was, I don't know. It was like questions about, it would ask you a crazy question. Like if someone had their house in a fire and there was this jewelry and it has this limit, but it says this special endorsement in the policy.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Calculate what their coverage would be. And you're like, oh God, I can't. But no, it wasn't terrible. Just had to learn long division once again.
So you started Pointview right after college?
I started it during college.
Or you started like working full time right when you got back from college?
Yes.
Doing Pointview. First, I think you brought up earlier before the cameras were on, it was one of your first roofs that you did, that there was some story behind it?
No, it was my first day selling.
Oh, first day selling, okay.
And I was shadowing, and we were out in an area that got hit by a storm, and it was just, like it is, I'm sure if anyone watching has saw their neighborhood get hit by a storm, it's crazy after a storm hits. There's everyone and their mother's out. Every contractor in the world is there knocking on doors. And I was there, I don't know, maybe a week and a half after. So there's still people knocking on doors. But I unfortunately had a policeman chase me down, and I got a soliciting ticket. And then my uncle, who I was working for at the time, had to go to court and fight it and explain it. But it was just, that was the first day doing it, and I was like, man, what is this industry? Like, why am I doing this?
Wait, if everybody's trying to sell their roofing company and GC, why are people getting soliciting? Why'd you get a soliciting ticket then?
I don't know. He just probably caught me. I don't know. I was just maybe the last one out. I think it was later in the day because that's
Maybe there's like
that's the best time to knock doors,
limit, yeah.
like 4 to 7. So I think I might have been the only one out at the time. That someone probably got mad,
Maybe it
which
was
I
like
get it. It's frustrating, you know, but that's just the way. Sometimes that's the only way you're going to earn someone's business. So,
Now, how'd you get your first few jobs at Pointview?
my first few jobs at Pointview,
And how'd they go? How'd they go? Doing your own thing.
like my first ones, I want to say they were just referrals from past customers I had done. So they went smooth. I think my first job was a smaller house over in the Roselle area. I want to say that was my first job, like on my own. But yeah, no, they went smooth. I've you come across new things on every job, but like I said, the more you do jobs, the more you come across things that is not so much a big deal, So they went smooth. I've had minimal major mishaps happen. Obviously being a roofing contractor, you're always looking in the sky, always checking your weather app. That's a little scary. I've had one bad thing happen to me there, but in the business, that's bound to happen. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you're always looking in the sky, and in the summertime, Chicago weather, you could have a pop-up shower and you do your best, but you just got to keep an eye on it. So it's definitely something that there's no predicting. You just try and be as prepared as you can.
Is there like a season or like a catalyst or a season throughout the year or like some kind of catalyst that's not storms that gets people to redo the roof or,
Yes. So actually the slowest time I would say in the exteriors industry or roofing industry is probably right now between like June 20th and right after 4th of July.
I think it's slow. Everybody's out traveling at this time.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Vacation.
And like it gets after like July 15th, it picks back up a little bit with people wanting to get stuff done. And then it really picks up like when kids go back to school. I don't know why that is. Maybe parents have more free time. And they're like, okay, the kids are not home. I got much more time to get things improved. So that's when it really picks up. So you would think that the summertime is like the busiest time. And with storm work, that's true. But with retail work, people, I don't know. It's just September. It really picks up. September, October is like the final push before the winter. Mm-hmm. So that really is the biggest time.
What about the dead of the winter? Are you working during like January, like in the
I
cold?
I did siding last year up until December 15th. So I think
it was a little warmer throughout December, like going into December.
Yeah,
this past year.
I think I stopped. I think my last day of working in the field was December 15th. And then you have basically of not doing jobs in the field, you have basically December, January, February. So you got like a good 3 months to where you're not working in the field. Obviously, you would think you'd be all lackadaisical and whatnot, but there's stuff to do.
So what do you do in that time? How do you fill your time?
I have claims outstanding that didn't get approved that need fighting. That takes up a lot of my time in the winter. I look at a decent amount of real estate, so I stay busy with that. But yeah, basically the claim work, you could fight claims tooth and nail for months. So that keeps me busy a lot as a public adjuster during the winter. But I don't know, it's the time to, roofing is a stressful industry. So you work during the summer, you work during the fall, spring, and then, you take your good 2 months off, kind of like a teacher. So you try and take some time off.
Just the
I
opposite.
definitely stay busy. It's not like I'm sleeping until 10, like I'm on summer break. No, it's not like that.
Like you're going on vacation.
Yeah, you go. I went to Florida for 2 weeks.
Yeah, go to Florida. A little bit.
A little bit.
Have to.
You got to get away for a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
And I know we were talking about real estate earlier. Mm-hmm. Your dad's got laundromats. Mm-hmm. You're looking at investment properties all the time. If you want to discuss some of the opportunities that you've been in, or
my family, their entire lives have done laundromats, strip centers. You see like small outlet spaces, and then they did inline stuff. But shopping centers, you see like a Chipotle, T-Mobile, Mattress Firm,
like
things
those
like that.
Smaller
outlet
not
spaces.
The big with like,
that's kind of what they what they've some of my uncles too have done. They really specialize in that. But yeah, outlots, things like that, kind of smaller centers. I think my uncle's got one that's like 30-something thousand square feet, but they even like one that's like 7,000, 9,000 square feet. When the time is right, they if you find the land for the right price. It's just right now that building costs are so expensive. So you don't see a lot of them going up right now just because building costs are so expensive. But
Yeah. Now, a lot of developers develop the property, then immediately sell it to an investor.
yeah,
Your family, they like to hold.
they like to hold.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes with like laundromats and stuff, sometimes you don't have a choice but to sell. If there's always a lot of things that could happen. If you got a new store coming up or someone's remodeling, it's just a lot of things could happen to where it's a good idea to sell. But you really never know if it's the right decision until 10 years down the line to see if the store is still there, is it still doing well.
Yeah.
But generally they like to hold. Yeah.
And the laundromats your father's purchased, were those developed by him? Or
Yeah.
did he just like buy
No,
them?
they were not existing.
Investments?
He
They were not
always
existing?
he always developed them. So
Nice.
yeah, they started doing. I think they started in the laundromat business. I don't know. My dad was probably in his early 30s. I want to say, and then an interesting. I guess you could say he's bought one because they sold one in Berwyn, and then like I don't know, 12, 13 years later, not even that long. Yeah, probably 10 years later, they ended up buying it back.
Oh, okay.
So that was an interesting one, but that's really the only time they bought an existing one. They've always developed it either from an existing building or ground up operation. So yeah, no, it's a very, it's a business to where you can, it's not so much hit or miss, but when you're talking about laundromats on the scale they do them, like, above 5,000 square feet,
Yeah.
5,000, 10,000 square foot stores, it's hit or miss because your overhead there is so high. So it's not like you have a small store in a shopping center that's 1,500 square feet, 2,000 square feet, and you're just paying rent. If you're developing a 8,000 square foot laundromat, you got a mortgage, you got an equipment loan.
Those
you gotta
industrial
pay people.
machines, I can't imagine how expensive they are.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah.
So there's a lot of risk with that, but if, you got a good store, you got a good store. So
Do you guys have like a management company that, you need someone there on site to manage
at the
everything.
laundromats,
At the laundromats, yeah.
No, we have a manager that we've had for quite some time.
One manager for all of them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So he kind of goes around and
Yeah.
takes care of everything from start to finish there. And then you got your daily staff. So it's hard to find help sometimes. The laundromats are open up 24 hours. So
How much staff do you need? Is like one
you
or two
usually
employees
need-
on site at a time? Or?
usually 2 attendants for 24 hours a day. So you have, and then during the
8-hour shifts, 3 shifts.
Yeah, and then in
Yeah.
the middle of the night, sometimes if you can probably go down to 1. It's just
Yeah.
sometimes that if they don't like to be there alone, so sometimes they like to have 2, even though you don't need them. They just feel a little safer. So
Yeah. And you did those the shopping centers as well, as your dad did. They're little, like 7,000 to 10,000 square foot shopping centers.
Sometimes.
Depends. But do you do the big box like the?
Yeah, they've done like inline spaces like attached to a Jewel.
Yeah.
They've
yeah.
done that too, to where it's like 30,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Or my uncle has one in Geneva that's like 35,000 square feet, and that's an outlot, but it's in like it's in a real nice spot. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess they'll do pretty much anything. It just kind of depends on how the deal works. So
And when you start getting into it, what kind of niche are you gonna
I don't
carve
know.
out for yourself? Do you think? Have you had any ideas?
I mean, nah, with shopping centers, there's not really. That's pretty much, they're easy to build. So, we could build them ourselves, but there's really, that's location, just like anything in real estate. If you got the location, the tenants are going to come.
Don't complicate it. Just stick to what you know.
You need the good
Yeah.
location. So, obviously you want to put up a nice building so you get, people interested. But,
So you're just looking at land all day. or-
yeah,
yeah.
or like, other
Properties to.
Yes.
Yeah.
basically land, because if you're developing a shopping center, the money's in developing it. It's just that building costs are so high right now, so not a lot of things work right
yeah.
now.
Did you get a lot of your supplies from abroad with the tariffs? How's that going? Any supplies come abroad?
So with roofing, shingles, like the actual, not every roofing supply went up, but shingles in general, like just a bundle of shingles went up almost, I don't know, it varies from supplier to supplier, but I would say around 10% is what they were saying. I really haven't done the math on it since it happened. But shingles themselves went up almost 10% after the tariff. So that hurts a little bit. Prices when you're bidding out retail jobs are, it just makes it worse. It doesn't look as good coming out to a customer, but you have no choice. It's not like you're going to bid it the same way and
Yeah.
make less money. So it is what it is. There's nothing you're going to do about that.
if you bid a customer and you go over your estimate, has there been a time you just ate the cost, or do you still kind of?
No, I mean, I price things pretty fairly.
Yeah.
I feel like when I'm doing retail work. So, I feel like when you're like other companies, big companies will go into a home and they like to close at the table. Like that's like their motto is like, you need to meet with the customer, you need to close at the table and, start at this price and come all the way down to this price and then walk out at this price if you can't make a deal. I don't do that. I just, my
pretty
price,
straight up.
my price is my price.
Yeah,
And then
I
they're
agree.
like, if they want to work something, I mean, they want to take something off and work out. I really don't budge much because I feel like my price is fair to begin with. I'm not there to see if you'll bite on bidding something really high and then come down, make you feel like you're getting a deal. I don't really do that, and I could be wrong. Maybe that's the way maybe people have ran studies on it. I'm sure it works. I just can't do that. So, I don't do it that way. I give my price and that's pretty much it.
I completely agree. Within my business, when I price out a customer on like a food product, I always give them the best price possible that I know we'll make a little bit of money, but they're also getting a good price.
Yeah.
Because these guys, I've dealt with suppliers that we're buying from. They'll start, like, let's say they'll start at like $5,000 and then they're able to come down to $3,000. I'm like, dude, like, why don't you just give me the best price to start,
Yeah.
It's a little insulting that, like,
I know.
they thought, like, we're not good enough buyers, that, like, we're not getting a better deal somewhere else and you can try to make, like, more money from us. I don't know. It's
Exactly. It's like, people, they'll go into a house and be like, oh, the price for your roof is $25,000. And then all of a sudden, you ask them, like, if they got another price and it was 15, they'd be like, well, I could do 17. Then they'd be like, well, why are you at 25 at first?
Yeah.
Like, how does that work? So there's really no explaining that. So that's why
There's a lack of trust after that. Like, you don't trust the guy anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. So I try and just be fair. And, maybe if you had some other crazy companies bidding this thing and they were at 25 and you were at 17 and maybe you lost out on money, but I don't know, at least you're honest.
People, exactly. People say you're going to leave money on the table, but I like to think that most of the people I deal with are somewhat sophisticated. They're going to get a decent price, and I don't have to try to make the money off them.
Exactly.
It's more so just being honest, giving them the best price. You don't have to discuss much because there's not much to discuss. You give them the best price.
Exactly. And then again, some money is better than no money. So
exactly,
that's another thing.
And just kind of make your money off the volume.
Yeah.
Getting the jobs done.
Exactly.
So, is there any philosophies or anything you've learned through your few years in the industry? I know you're very young. What are you, 24?
24.
24?
Yeah.
What have you learned? And this is great because you're going to look back at this and say, like, oh, wow.
What I've learned is true is that my dad always told me, you want to be a good contractor, answer the phone. And that is really a big selling point when I'm with a homeowner is that, people will be sitting there and say, why should I pick you? Why are you a better contractor than the next? I said, you know what? You probably could find someone. There's probably 10 roofing companies you could call, and maybe 10 out of 10 will do great work. Maybe 8 out of 10 will do good work. I'll know I'll do great work. I know that. I'll be on my jobs. I'll make sure they go great. But the biggest thing, I answer the phone, good or bad, I will answer your phone call. And that's just sometimes people, especially in the exterior industry, I feel like sometimes don't answer the phone. I don't know why. I pride myself on answering the phone. So I don't know if you can call that a philosophy, but that's one thing I do pride myself on is communication.
People love that. And you're talking about, like, if they have a question on
anything. You don't like the way something looks. You want to know when this is happening. You want an update. If it's an insurance claim, you want an update. You can call me anytime. You can call me on a Sunday night at 7:00. I'll try and answer the phone.
Yeah, I agree. Within our business as well, like, whenever someone's taking a really long time to answer, or you got to chase someone down for just a simple question, you don't really want to do business with the guy anymore.
No.
I'll go to the guy who maybe does a little worse work, but answers my call whenever and is always, on top of his
communication
just stuff.
Makes things so much easier. And I feel like, that's how you gain someone's trust. Obviously, meeting with someone and talking through things with them is huge, but when you have communication and you make someone feel comfortable, that's how you earn their trust, because the trust has to be earned. And how are you going to earn someone's trust if you can't answer the phone call? You know, how do they feel safe? I'm going to rip this guy's roof in half tomorrow, and I'm not answering my phone, the day before. It's like, it's just something that you have to do. And my dad told me that from a young age in the construction industry is you have to answer the phone, and it could not be more true.
For sure. And he's very successful. Your uncle's very successful. and you will and are already very successful, especially for your age. So
Thank you.
yeah, good stuff. Is there anything else you want to share?
I don't think so.
Yeah?
It's been a pleasure.
Cool. Well, thank you, Jake. And yeah, thanks for listening.